What's up, everyone? On today's show, can Kevin Love do it again? That and more on today's show. I want to thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
All right, the music you heard on the way in, at least in audio form, is from our friends at Astro Radio. Check them out on Apple Music or Spotify. I'm Chris Manning, covering the Cavs and the NBA for places like Diamond UPROXX and Estimations for the Sword. Evan's out today, doing Lord knows what, but filling in is the one, the only Justin Rowan at Cavs Canada from the Chase Down podcast. Producer Jake Stevens is not with us behind the virtual glass, but Jake, hello. Justin, what's good, brother? How are you?
Not too bad, man. I'm doing well. I am itching for Cavs basketball. I hate that it's 2 months away, but I'm excited to be here talking with you about it.
Look, the preseason schedule has been announced. It's closer than you think. It's going to come up and you're going to be like, oh, we're back, baby.
We're going to be back before you know it. I tweeted about this last week, but this is the year where even when the season wrapped in April, I didn't want it to end. I still wanted more basketball, so yes. I am so damn impatient right now.
I understand that, and we're going to talk today about someone who featured very heavily in last season. That's Kevin Love. So, Justin, I want to start before we get into the focus of today's show, which is why he was good again last year, how the Cavs supported him, and then lastly, can he do it again? Have you seen these Kevin Love Instagram posts on his African vacation with his wife?
I have not yet, no.
So they are incredible. Number one, very good photography skills, but he's also like talking about like the thrill of the hunt and like it's a tough game out there as like lions are mauling like animals in the Sahara, and then it's like you go through the slide and it's like very nice wine and some glasses and like a nice meal like on the back of this Jeep as him and Kate Bach are being driven around the Sahara, and I'm just like, Kevin, what is going on in your brain that you're just like, I like cool honeymoon flex, like if I had the money certainly would have been in play, but you know, Kevin Love just being like, it's the thrill of the hunt, it's a tough game out here, it's just like seared into my brain from Kevin Love.
You know what? I'm looking at the Instagram. It is hilarious. And in some ways, you know, it's a very similar experience to us when we talk about the NBA. At the end of the day, we're just tourists. You know, we're observing, we're trying to have takeaways from it. But at the end of the day, we don't really know what's going on, but we act like, you know what, it's the thrill of competition. It's, you know, the heart of a champion. That's what this really comes down to. Kevin Love's just role-playing being a podcaster.
Justin says, you know, it's the thrill of the hunt when Isaac Okoro like dunks on someone. He's just like, you know, he got Jokic. It's just the thrill of the hunt, baby. That's what this is.
The taste of raw meat as he dunks on 3 Houston Rockets.
Oh my God, Rockets would be like, actually, those guys, Alperen Sengun's better than Evan Mobley. Anyway, Kevin Love. So last year, limited minutes, 22.5 per game, limited his wear and tear a ton, took a ton of threes, very high percentage of threes he made, still a very good defensive rebounder. Overall, good vibes, I think, with Kevin Love, Justin. So I want to ask you, when you think, okay, why was Kevin Love effective again last year? Why was he not peak Kevin Love anymore, but now like an effective bench player? Why do you think, what would you say are the reasons you think that happened?
I mean, the biggest is health. I mean, you look at 2 seasons ago, and he actually had a very healthy year in that COVID-shortened year. He was healthy. He was productive. I thought he actually played really good basketball. And then the following year, he just flat out wasn't healthy. And I think it's easy to forget that the Cavs actually started off that year playing really good basketball. They were playing winning basketball. You would think, given the post-LeBron stretch that he had, if he was healthy, he'd want to take part of that and would be out there. He just physically wasn't able to. He wasn't even able to physically take part of Team USA. So I think that factor needs to be mentioned on the front end, because I think people all automatically just rush to, oh, well, you know, it's a change of mentality. He's embracing the Cavs situation. There was a legitimate thing that was holding him back, which was his health. Beyond that, I do think having limited minutes really helped him maintain that health after getting healthy rather than, riding him into the ground. And then also the fact that you had very good playmakers around him. Darius Garland took a massive leap, and I think playing with Garland was very helpful. Having Ricky Rubio in the second unit, I think, was really helpful. So I think those were major contributing factors for him. And also the Rubio impact, and I know you've talked about this a fair bit, you could see a drop off in his effectiveness as the season went on, and he was asked to play more minutes and play without a backup point guard for a lot of the season.
Yeah, I think for him, I think the 22.5 minutes per game allowing for health was a big deal. Like, I think you would, if you asked him this point blank, he would say like 30 minutes a night for me is just like it's not functional anymore. Like, it's not a thing I can do. Like,
I think he's publicly said that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and like, look, there were some times at the end of last year where like you saw him play 30 minutes a night when they're searching for answers. Like, JB turned that dial up and kind of leaned on him a little bit more. But like throughout the season, if like they had a random game where it didn't matter that much, like he was fine. When he had COVID, like he came back and ultimately was fine. Like he was able to navigate some, which was really good. I also just think, for whatever reason, and like there's a lot of stuff in his game that is skill based that I think contributes to this, but like they just also kind of decided like, okay, Kevin, what you are now is a guy who's just going to shoot a ton of threes and you're not going to have to move a lot. You are going to get to stand at the side. You're going to get to pump fake and do your little sidestep. You're going to get to try to do your little lean in foul, even though they changed the rules and then kind of like didn't really change the rules. You get to reset. You get to do some passing and do some stuff in that regard, but you're not going to have to move very much. We're going to put you on the wing. Maybe once in a while you're going to get an elbow touch or a post touch here and there, but like you're going to get to just like chill. And we're going to like limit how much energy we're really asking you to spend. And like 39% on three, 40% on non-corner threes. I don't know if that's like a thing we can expect those same high numbers again. But I think you look at how well he shot, how impactful his minutes felt. Like it's about the top way you could have hoped Kevin Love's season would have gone last year. I mean, when I've gone back, looked at the numbers, looked at some film, it feels like the absolute perfect Kevin Love season for where he is at. And I think everything we've hit on kind of explains why.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I would still expect some of those percentages to be pretty high, because when you're talking about a player with the talent of a Kevin Love, someone that's been at one point was considered a top 5 player after that last year in Minnesota, that's who it was advertised that the Cavs were trading for. He's been an all-star. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. When all of a sudden you reduce how many difficult shots they need to take and really kind of make the role easier, we're no longer asking you to take 16 shots in a game. I think having that more manageable diet of shots is going to improve your shot making. And I think that's one of the tricky things. I mean, we make fun of Rockets fans for per 36 numbers. Like, that's one of the tricky things when you're talking about kind of these low minute, just good situation guys. And I think Kevin Love has kind of graduated into that. So I'm not too concerned about the shooting numbers dropping off. I think the shooting numbers are going to be based on context. If the Cavs are healthy and you have Howell Neto and Ricky Rubio and Karis LeVert and Sexton and Garland, all these guys generating good shots for him, and he's not being asked to do too much, I would expect the effectiveness to remain pretty steady.
I think the other thing that I think you hit on that's correct is that Kevin Love just has like skills that have aged well. There are parts of his game that are kind of gone and have phased out, and some of that isn't age. It's just like when he came to Cleveland in 2014, like Minnesota Kevin Love was like thrown into the garbage disposal. Like
he's out of practice now, right? You got to consistently do that at an NBA level to be able to really tap back into that.
Yeah, and like a LeBron James-centric offense and then a JB Bickerstaff offense are not Rick Adelman's offense, which he had in Minnesota. Like they are very different things. So like, but what has sustained is that like the Kevin Love pump fake is going to be fooling guys until he's like 40. He'll be playing like we're gonna get like a clip on social when he's like 45. Still probably looking like a snack, honestly. And he's just going to be like pump faking like a 22-year-old. And we're going to be like, yes, Kevin Love can still like that part of his game, that the shooting, the skill to set up his shots, the form, the consistency of it. I think that's just going to be there. And I think if there is optimism on the shot holding, that's the case. I think the other thing very quickly, remains a very good solid defensive rebounder. They don't ask him to like do a lot on defense. They ask him just to compete and be in his position. But they're like, Kevin, if you can get rebounds and you can help us generate some fast break, you can at least get us possessions and end them and allow us to get on offense and maximize our good defense. That's all they're asking him to do. That's like for Kevin, for where he is with the personnel the Cavs have. Like, I think they kept it really simple. And like, I don't, whether, how he feels about that, how the coaches feel about that. I think it's clear that like the vibes were good. It seems like he was very comfortable in this, and like, to everyone's credit, like that could have gone a different way. It could have, but it worked out, and it gives you optimism, I think, as we look ahead and we get in the next segment, like how this could go. And also just that the Cavs, I think, did make Justin a strategic choice to like actually invest in protecting Kevin Love.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was actually listening to Zach Harper on the Athletics pod, and he talked about how when Kevin Garnett went back to Minnesota, it inspired the young guys because they saw how hard he had to work to get his body ready to play 18 minutes a night and how well the start of the season went. But then all of a sudden later in the year when KG wasn't healthy enough to play, all that kind of coaching, all the mentoring, all like that veteran wisdom, it doesn't land the same when you're not out there playing. And I think we saw, the previous year, Kevin Love got credited, even though he had expressed at times that he wanted to be out there. There were other times where you had guys like Sexton and Garland talking about what an impact he made off the court. And I think it just was more pronounced when you see him out there last year, not missing a single game due to injury, embracing that role. Like, I think having a player of his caliber with his kind of resume embrace that role, I think it really, really did mean a lot to the team and kind of set the tone that everyone else followed.
Absolutely. All right, after the break, we're going to talk about how the Cavs did, in fact, help Kevin Love through the lens of the players they played him the most with. Obviously, a lot of injuries on this Cavs team last year, but some stuff we can dive into. But first, going to tell everyone about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your betting needs. Find all of your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. Probably the Canadian Football League as well, which Justin informed me on, because shouts to my king, Nathan Work. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for your sports wagering information, from live and in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to BetOnline today or use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today. For instance, the Cavs are minus 125 to finish with fewer than 43 wins and minus 105 to finish with more than 43 wins. The Cavs title odds, by the way, if you're feeling frisky, are plus 12,500. So kind of interesting there. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, back here on Locked On Cavs with Justin Rowan from the Chase Down podcast. Justin, here are the 5 most common encore partners that Kevin Love had last year in terms of minutes. This is in order, and then there's some specifically I want to talk about, but I'll let you kind of direct the traffic here. Cedi Osman was first, which kind of caught me off guard, was kind of weird. I don't think we're going to be talking about Cedi Osman in this segment. Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Isaac Okoro, and then 5th was Lauri Markkanen.
Mm-hmm.
That 5 of the ones, I think the 2 most interesting ones are Garland and Mobley. The Markkanen one caught me a little bit off guard, and I wonder if that's just a little bit of injuries and a little bit of the roster being in a weird spot. I kind of don't suspect that's a thing we'll see a ton of this year. It doesn't really make sense to me in my head. But who do you want to touch on here?
Yeah, well, I think Markkanen is 100% a product of the times where he was playing the most minutes were late in the season, where Jared Allen was out and eventually Mobley was out, right? And I think that's a big part of why you saw the defense drop off for the Cavs last season. I'm not going to sit here. I think you were correct to assume I'm not going to be talking a lot about Cedi Osman in this space. I do think it stands out that the point guard he got the most minutes with was Garland, and just kind of the inconsistency that he had in terms of actual playmakers. I mean, we know, like, point Okoro, not a thing. Point Cedi, very infrequently a thing, but, he could do it at times. There wasn't a lot of guys consistently setting him up when you look at who he played with the most last season. And I'm hoping that changes. Like, I hope that having Raul Neto out there is going to make a difference. I think there's also a really interesting dynamic where, depending on who the starting shooting guard is, you're either playing with, in all likelihood, Colin Sexton or Karis LeVert. That's going to change the dynamic a fair bit. And I think that there's going to be more weapons around in the second unit. I think you're going to maybe have a little bit more structure than you've had in the past. Even just if we make the assumption that Ochai Agbaji overtakes Jetty's role in those minutes with that second unit, I don't think he's really going to be going kind of rogue in the same way Jetty does at times. And I think that is going to kind of make the second unit more interesting, because now you have those spacers in Love and Agbaji. You're probably going to have more playmaking juice than you've had in the past. And I would still assume you're going to see Evan Mobley or Jared Allen kind of playing that backup center role. So I'm very interested to see what a pick and roll ball handler, Mobley and Allen, plus Love, Agbaji, or whoever else is with their out there in that unit. I'm interested to see what that does, both for the Cavs' consistency when they go to the bench, as well as Kevin Love in probably an additional reduced usage role.
The Agbaji thing, I think, is a good little point to hit, because I think when you said that, my brain immediately just goes, okay, we're probably going to see at some point this year Kevin Love dribble handoff to Ochai Agbaji. He's going to set a screen, and Agbaji's just going to fire. It's not going to be the Jetty thing where he maybe drives into the lane, throws up a weird floater, tries to maybe makes a pass, maybe makes an okay shot, but Agbaji's probably just going to fire the three that presents itself, and that in itself will be a different look. That I think will be positive. I like the Garlands, considering just where the roster went. I like the Garland pairing with Love. I wonder if we do see less of it this year, just because maybe the Garland's minutes get dialed back a little bit just to kind of play the long game. Maybe they trust Nato. Maybe Sexton and or LeVert kind of do some backup point guard stuff that can help kind of ease Darius's burden a little bit. But it's maybe putting the two guys on the floor post Rubio that have the best creation, or the most crafty, kind of the most offensively kind of visionary players in a way. Really good spacing with those two as well, absolutely just stretching everything out. Those two on the floor together, plus 7.8 per 100 possessions. That's really, really good. Justin, the one that caught me off guard the most in this was Evan Mobley. And this isn't a bad...
Why is that?
So 736 minutes. I would have guessed they were positive together, minus 2.8 per 100 possessions.
Oh, you're talking about the effectiveness together. Okay.
Yeah, so I wouldn't have guessed that. And then I compared it to Love and Allen, and that was 476 minutes, so significantly less minutes, but plus 5.4 per 100.
Mm-hmm.
I really like the fit of Mobley and Love together. I love the idea of saying, okay, Evan Mobley, we need to play you some 5 minutes. Let's put you with Kevin Love, who's going to do some of the creation stuff with you, who can rebound with you, who can space for you, and then Mobley can cover for Love in a different way. Now, maybe year one of Mobley, asking him to do some of that stuff with the 5 was the limit of his defensive upside. Maybe year 2 looks different. I'd have to look at. I'm gonna admit I didn't go and look at all the 5-man versions here, and I certainly do think all the injuries last year contribute to some of this feeling a little bit wonky when we look back at it. But yeah. I was a little surprised. I'm not surprised that Allen and Love was effective, because that is a classic peanut butter and jelly. Put the rim protector, rim runner with Kevin Love. That makes a ton of sense.
With the stretch 4, yeah.
Right. Mobley is the upgraded alien version of that. And I kind of want to see them go do it this year. If I'm thinking of Kevin Love bench units, Mobley plus Allen Mobley plus Love plus Agbaji, and then pick your point guard. That framework with a shooter, Mobley at the 5, Love at the 4, a point guard who's going to help facilitate, keep the trains moving on time. That makes a ton of sense to me as far as... And then, you put Allen with Markkanen, and, obviously there's going to be some overlap. You'll see some Robin Lopez at times, I'm sure, too. But I like the idea of putting Kevin Love with this guy who's also going to maybe do some of the creation stuff with your backup point guard in year 2. And, there's potential in this duo that I kind of just want to see if we could see that extended out this year.
I love that you made that point, because I think to me it illustrates that the Cavs are actually going to have more options this year, and it'll be interesting to see how creative they get, right? Mm-hmm. Because I do think that there was personnel issues as the season went on. They had to strip down what they were doing offensively rather than building on the foundation they started the year with. And even you advocating for Mobley and Love playing together and continuing that pairing, to me, one of the things that I was advocating for, or I thought was an interesting idea, was switching up the role so that Jared Allen functionally becomes the backup center and is the first sub out, especially if you are having Karis LeVert or Colin Sexton play some of those backup point guard minutes, because both of those guys are good pick and roll ball handlers. So pairing them with their best screener and kind of the most effective rim running option and having the spacing around them, that might make it easier to consistently generate offense with the second unit, while you're trusting Darius Garland to do that with the starters. And maybe you move Lauri Markkanen over to the 4 with Mobley at the 5 and bring in Abaji or another one of your wing options, Isaac Okoro, and get creative that way. The fact that there is good points and reasons to try both of those kind of looks and different ways that they can go, I think it makes it a much more rich season to evaluate, assuming everyone's healthy, versus last year where it really became like problem solving, putting duct tape on the canoe to kind of patch up all the issues they have. They're going to have more ball handlers this year. I think even just seeing the way that Lamar Stevens and Dean Wade stepped up last year, you have a higher level of confidence in those guys as 12th and 13th men on this roster. You know they can play minutes. The fact that you have a lot of options, even if a lot of them are kind of like big twos and there's not really a true 3 on the roster, the variety of options I think makes this a lot more interesting to evaluate next season.
Do you think, this is a slight tangent before we're going to break, but do you think JB should tinker a lot in the early part of the season to find stuff? Like, how much tinkering are you expecting?
Yeah, I think what we'll see, I would assume it'd be similar to the start of last year, where they show up early prior to camp. The continuity looks good. You're seeing ball movement, and then you kind of build off of that. I'm hoping to see some tinkering, and I think I want to see tinkering from specific guys. Like, the reason I didn't care about Darius Garland turnovers last year, not that they were that out of control, and they actually got better as the year progressed. I want young guys making mistakes in service of trying to expand their game, figure out what they can and can't do. I'm okay if you're taking a little bit of a step back at times because you're trying to get Evan Mobley to try new things, to be a bit of an offensive hub, and understanding that there's going to be hiccups with that. And I think you're actually going to be okay with some offensive experimentation because the defense should be as good, if not better. Like, even you mentioned the rebounding that Kevin Love does. The fact that Abaji is a good rebounder for his position is going to help you end possessions. Like, they should be a better rebounding team, and that's just going to make them better on the defensive end. So I'm fine with maybe tinkering and going through some growing pains, because at the end of the day, this isn't a title contention year. We are still banking on internal growth being the clearest path to getting better and figuring out how many games this roster can win together. So I'd expect selective tinkering from certain guys like an Evan Mobley, not so much of, okay, we're going to try Point Okoro to expand that aspect of his game. I don't think
don't tempt me with a good time, Justin. Do not tempt me with a good time.
Look, I think we're still a couple of years away from him becoming Jimmy Butler. It's okay to admit that.
If I see, my thoughts on Isaac Okoro are pretty well known. Let's not compare him to Jimmy Butler, you absolute. If I see, like, also the tweets where it's like comparing him and Lamar Stevens to Jimmy Butler, I just am like, guys, let's like.
Look, Chris. Jimmy did it first. I'm just following one of the NBA's greatest leaders.
All right, I'm gonna bite my finger off before I get in trouble. All right, after the break, we're gonna look at what's going on with Kevin Love next year. Can he repeat the success he had last year, where he was a 6th Man of the Year candidate? Right after this. Justin, I'm just gonna ask you point blank. Do you think Kevin Love? Yeah, you're in trouble, buddy. I'm gonna turn you into an NFT like Evan. When you look at Kevin Love and thinking about him next year, 35, had a year healthy last year, but more miles. It's another year older. Injury luck was good last year. Are you expecting that what he can do last year to some degree can be done again? Like, can we see what we saw from Kevin Love this year? And I would argue that this is important just because I generally think he probably should have either won or finished 2nd and 6th Man of the Year. I think his minutes were that impactful. And when you watch the games back, you think about them, his what he did felt very important in a way that I didn't expect, obviously, to how successful the team was. So can the Cavs and Kevin Love have that same success with his minutes again this year?
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't a fake six man that was like second in minutes per game on the team because they're trying to get an accolade alongside him so that they can shop him in the summer because they don't want to pay him.
Rings down on the table, brother. You got to just get it done. You know, are we gonna get the Adrian Brody's like old Pat Riley series? Because I would watch that. Just to be clear,
I would watch that too. Adrian Brody is always willing to go weird, but I don't think he's going to finish as high in sixth man of the year voting. I don't think he's going to be the sixth man of this team. Like I mentioned before, it wouldn't have happened last year. That would have been Ricky Rubio, right? If he was healthy for more of the season, Ricky Rubio would have been the sixth man on the Cavs. And it's similar to what the Jazz had in Joe Ingles and Jordan Clarkson, the two guys that are being very productive. And one of Karis LeVert or Colin Sexton is going to be coming off the bench. I think they're going to have a higher usage in those minutes than Kevin Love with the second unit. I think there's just more depth on this team. And I think Kevin Love is going to be effective in terms of impact. I think when you look at the on-off splits and all that, it's going to illustrate that, hey, Kevin Love is really helpful for the offense of the second unit. I think his percentages might even go up a little bit. Like maybe the 3-point percentage stays about the same, but the 2-point comes up a little bit because he's going to be in an easier role. But I do think in terms of actual counting stats, like I would expect him to stay closer to the 18 minutes a game that he was getting for most of the year, just because there is more depth on the roster. And I think that bodes well when you're talking about, can he stay healthy? Having a reduced role doesn't eliminate the possibility of a freak injury, but it's going to limit the amount of wear and tear that can cumulatively add up to a serious injury. So I do think he's going to be very effective, but I do think the numbers are probably going to come down just a little bit.
I think the way forward here is just continue. If you want to maximize this and you're planning to get into the playoffs and get Kevin Love minutes there and have him healthy, I think 18 minutes is about right. I also am like kind of not opposed to some back-to-backs off if I'm him. Like this is a long season. Play Dean Wade one night. If you're back-to-back in Utah and then like Minnesota or whatever the next night, the schedule's not out yet, but let's just say like there's a weird back-to-back. Give Kevin Love an extra day off. Let him do the stuff that's going to prolong Kevin Love, because I think you need him. You need him to be the best version of himself, I think, for this team to have the kind of success. Like, this team is, to me, still lacking a little bit. Like, there's the offensive question that I think how the offense turns out, how it functions, is one of the things that will determine how good the team can be. I think to have the best version of the offense, they're going to need impactful Kevin Love. And I think managing that for the long haul is the way forward here. Even if he dips Justin a little bit on 3-point shooting, even if it goes down to like 37 from above the break or 30, like,
no, I don't care.
That is still good enough.
Yeah, we saw it with Lowry, right? Like just the willingness to shoot and having three guys like that in Lowry, Love, and Abaji should help a lot. Like this team, the spacing, like you look at B-Ball Index's numbers and it's abysmal. Like Garland had some of the worst spacing in the league. And like that's part of what makes me so excited that Garland, Mobley, and Allen work so well, because that was supposed to be the year where that trio had the most growing pains, where it was the most difficult to make work because you had two non-shooting big men, and it worked. So having Kevin Love out there, whether it's in a mix in the second unit or not, I completely agree. Rest him some nights, make sure that he's healthy for the long run, because the other factor to consider in all this is there is still kind of going to be a minutes crunch. And if it means getting more minutes earlier in the season to give Abaji a run, allow Okoro to try some stuff, to have Sexton and LeVert play minutes, if resting Kevin Love every now and then helps that, I think this team, regardless of how they play, I think at the trade deadline, you're going to see a little bit of a consolidation move, because I don't expect Sexton and LeVert to be on the roster at the end of the season. You have to factor in Ricky Rubio coming back into the rotation. So if you can make a consolidation move where you are addressing a team need, making a bit of a long-term play or a play that works alongside the core, and you have Kevin Love, who has had his minutes managed and is ready to step up into a role. Ricky Rubio maybe ready to step up and eat some minutes as well. It makes you feel a little more confident that you can successfully pull off a consolidation move because you have the necessary depth and you've managed the health of Kevin Love. So I think what you're advocating for makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, look, if there's a night where it's just like a weird matchup for Kevin, like that, like if you're playing them, let's just say like they're playing like the Magic, and it's like they go really small, and it just defensively like it becomes a problem. Give him that night off. It's fine. It doesn't matter. You want Kevin Love for like the games where you are like, this is cliche, but like you want Kevin Love on the floor because he knows what to do when it's April and you're competing to avoid the play-in tournament, or you're in a first round playoff series and you're trying to navigate. That's when you want Kevin Love to be healthy, to be engaged, to be providing the spacing. And like they just need his spacing. Markkanen, Abaji, and him are the spacing. Garland is as well, and I think Sexton can be, but they're a little bit different. They're going to play more with the ball in their hands. These are the guys that are stretching things off ball. And like if he even though like as Kevin Love has shifted away from All-Star Kevin Love, we hit it this to the top. Teams, and you've said it, teams still freak out when he's off ball and he gets the ball. They like part of the reason his pump fake works is because they're like, oh, Kevin Love is going to shoot. Oh crap, Kevin Love's going to fire and score. Or like they fly by him and he can either get a shot or creates a 5-on-4. Like there is still just value in him doing that. And I think as part of the thing we saw last year is just like it didn't work out, I think, the way that like he kind of wanted in terms of where he was, but it worked out for him in that like the Cavs have Jared Allen and Evan Mobley to cover for him defensively. And like, Guess what? That's for Kevin Love where he's at. You probably couldn't think of like a better big man pairing to cover him for however many minutes he's going to play. And this has allowed him to age into the role that is going to allow him to still play well. Like it wouldn't shock me, Justin, if like we see Kevin Love not just this next year, but maybe 1-2 more years after that still be like a guy you can play like some rotation minutes. Like I don't know exactly how he's going to age. We'll see how the injuries hold up and things, but like even like it wouldn't shock me if he's like back on the Cavs or makes a title run somewhere where he's got a couple more years where you put him in this kind of role and he can still be pretty effective. Maybe not to the end of the season and when things get like really trimmed down, but still like a guy that's going to help you win a lot of games in the regular season and early into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, when LeBron left for the Lakers, that's why I wrote for the Sword that the Cavs should give him an extension. Now, it didn't work out the way I thought at all, but I thought that this is an archetype that ages well and is going to help, especially at the time, like they drafted Colin Sexton. I'm like, well, you want to have a spacing 4 to go with the slasher. And I think Kevin Love, especially now that he's shown the willingness to embrace his role, I completely agree with you. I don't know if that's going to be with the Cavs. Like if they start to push their chips into the middle because they are likely going to have some cap space next year. And I kind of feel like that's the year after evaluating what you have in terms of internal growth this season. You start to say, okay, well, now we need to take the next step forward. Let's start looking at some win now moves. Maybe that means you're bringing in a small forward and Lowry graduates to that backup 4 role that Kevin Love is in, where he's splitting his minutes with Mobley and Allen. Might have to kind of confront a tough decision there and asset allocation of, do we want to bring him back? But I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying, where I can see this aging well and helping the team beyond his own individual numbers. So I'm interested to see how Kevin Love does. I'm really happy that it seems like it's trending. Even if this is his last year in Cleveland, I'm happy that it's trending towards this chapter ending on a happy note, because that just wasn't the case with so many members of the championship team. And it's ironic that it's Kevin Love, but at the end of the day, like it's Kevin Love, man. Like he brought a wrestling title belt to the parade and was crushing beers, and it's Kevin Love. I'm happy that we're getting this chapter with him.
Yes. All right. It's been a pleasure, Justin. Thanks so much for coming on. People should go check out the Chase Down Show on wherever you're listening to Locked On Cavs right now. You probably already are, but you should go subscribe if you aren't already. Justin, I've been asking people this, and we're gonna end on this. Is there a very niche Cavs topic that you're excited to explore at some point when you're thinking of it? Is there like a very random thing? Like my pet thing right now is like finding minutes for Dean Wade. I've been Wade pilled.
I mean, it's not niche, but like the thing that's been on my mind the most is Okoro, because I've been an Okoro centrist, and I think I still am an Okoro centrist. You've tried talking me up.
Well, I've gone from like if I was like a Bernie Sanders Okoro guy, I've probably shifted into like the Chris Coons like zone, like just making deals. You don't know what that means because you're Canadian. I forgot that.
That's flying right over my damn head, but that's
that's fine. So I've gone from let's say like a pretty like progressive Okoro person to like I'm somewhere more towards the center these days. Last year was not perfect.
It's funny to remember that he's just a couple months older than Mobley, and he's the second youngest guy on the roster, right? Like it's unfair to him that the timeline accelerated, but at the end of the day, that's the nature of the NBA. Everyone took internal leaps, and we're going to need to see what you do there. I don't know. I don't know if there's a niche Cavs thing, and maybe this is a case of me being like just so IV'd into every single Cavs topic that I think everything's well known, and I'm missing what's niche and what's not. I mean, we both host Cavs specific podcasts. This is as niche as it gets. But yeah, I would probably say Isaac Okoro is right up there, because I think there's a lot more kind of sexy names around it, but man, if it's even a modest leap, like you said, with Kevin Love's willingness to shoot, people don't care. No defenders care that Isaac Okoro was shooting 38% from 3 after December. That was not a factor. But if he can up that volume a little bit, that can make a really big difference. If he improves his handle a little bit, it starts to unlock the other aspects of his game. And I think you guys did a really good job last few episodes kind of talking about the different points with Okoro. But man, like when you're bringing in a two-way player in Abaji, if you can get another two-way player through internal development, whether that's Sexton playing better on-ball defense, whether that's Okoro expanding his offensive game. The analogy I gave on the last episode of Chase Down is, I don't know what's going to hit, but I feel good about my hand, and I feel good about the flop. I got Garland, Allen, and Mobley there, and I have a lot of outs. There's a lot of different interesting options that could make this really, really exciting for the Cavs, and they probably just need one to hit, whether that's Okoro becoming Jimmy Butler or Abaji becoming Desmond Bane. Modest goals, Chris.
Just, one of the most important players in the league who may help make a finals, Jimmy Butler, and one of the best shooters in first-round value picks the last couple of years, Desmond Bane. Just a very normal 50%
two players that had massive leaps in their development despite being 22 years old, Chris, when they came into the league.
As someone who is rapidly getting older, I'm advocating that we all can continue to improve. I've become much more or less of a zealot on the youth thing. But Justin, your check for promoting the fact that you listened to the Okoro episode is in the mail. Hopefully the conversion rate, does you some solids. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. This episode was produced by Jake Stevens. We're going to be back on Friday. Me and I think Mac Perry and Corey Walsh from It's Cavalier. We're going to talk about if the Cavs have actually good depth on very good dudes. We're actually going to talk about if the Cavs have good depth on the roster. AKA, we're going to talk about Dean Wade and Lamar Stevens and some of the vets they signed in the summer. Hope you tune in for that. For your second listen today, get up to date on the latest news and rumors in the NBA in just 30 minutes every day with Locked On NBA. Locked On NBA is your daily NBA update in just 30 minutes. Check it out. Check out Locked On Browns, Locked On Guardians, Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. It's all great. Thanks again to Justin. Everyone, be well.